is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 4 press conferences the Detroit Lions had on their YouTube channel today, including Deuce Staley, Dave Fipp, Aaron Glenn, and Anthony Lynn. So let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
And welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we got to hear from some of the Detroit Lions staff today, and I just got done watching all of those videos. If you guys want to check them out, the full press conferences are on the Detroit Lions YouTube channel, but I've got some of my major takeaways from each coach, okay? So I took some notes as I watched, I tried to really limit down some of the notes that I do have, and I have a couple of takeaways from each coach from today's press conferences. So yeah, we're going to kind of just take a look at all of them. We're going to try to fly through this. And I would say this about, all the introductory press conferences as usual, I'm hyped. Okay, look, I just can't help it. This got me so excited. Just some of the stuff that they said, I'm like, oh yeah, let's get it. They all want to win. Like, of course they're going to say that, but they want to win. I hope we win too. So we're going to start this off with the special teams coach. Yeah, let's do it with Dave Fipp first. Now, Dave Fipp, I got to be honest, man, you kind of scared me with that laugh early. You started laughing. I was like, oh snap, what was that? It was a funny laugh though, because it made me laugh too. So that's always the best. When someone laughs and you laugh at their laugh, it's a good laugh.
Wow.
So I only have a couple of takeaways from what Dave Fipp had to say. He is our special teams coach, by the way. He joined from Philadelphia. Also, Deuce Staley from Philadelphia joined as our running back coach. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. But let's start off with Dave Fipp first, who is replacing Braden Coombs. He's joining a special teams unit that's pretty strong, but they got some questions, including Matt Prater and Jamal Agnew and their contracts for next season. But he said this. All right, they asked him, hey, what are you most excited about when it comes to the special teams unit? And he said, you know what I'm most excited about? I'm most excited about getting to work with Dan Campbell. I was like, oh, snap, what? Okay, first off, every single person really said this, and it made you feel really good, but he said, I'm just most excited to work with Dan Campbell. We worked in the past for 2 years. I was on the same coaching staff, and he said, I like to kind of just see what other good coaches did and try to add it to the way that I coached, and he was always someone that I looked at, and I tried to kind of take notes from what he did, so that was good. Obviously, he was excited to get to work with Dan Campbell. He thinks very highly of Matt Prater and Don Muhlbach. He said, I don't know if they're going to be back. I'm not going to speak on that because, well, I'm not going to do that, but we'll see. But he did speak highly of them. Look, I think Matt Prater is going to be brought back. I'm just going to say it right now. I do think Matt Prater is going to be brought back. I think Jamal Agnew is the question. But Matt Prater, I think we'll have some competition for him. I just think he's going to be our kicker next season if I had to bet on it. So, really, that's all I got from the special team side of things. He started to get it going a little bit. It felt like he was getting more comfortable as it went on. So it was kind of cool. So Dave Fipp, I'm excited to have you as our special teams coach. But like I said, I try to really limit my notes here because I have a lot. So congratulations, Dave Fipp. Dave Fipp told us this nice little story, which I thought was pretty funny, is that basically, okay, the season's over for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're kind of on their own. They're doing their own thing. And Dave Fipp told us that, him and Deuce Staley just called each other just to kind of check up on one another, just kind of talk.
Yo. What's up?
And, I guess they had a good relationship in Philadelphia. And at that time is when they found out they were both going to Detroit. So he was basically saying, yeah, hey, I'm going to Detroit. And then Deuce Staley's like, hey, I'm going there too. And that's how they found out. So it was a weird way to find out. But I thought that's kind of an awesome story. Like, that's pretty awesome. Could you imagine that? Okay, hey, look, you both work in one place, you get along, but, the season didn't go well. And you're kind of going on your own separate paths. And as you're trying to figure out your next career path, you call your buddy and you're talking. And then all of a sudden, that dude's like, hey, I'm going there too. It's like, oh, snap, for real? Like, so I thought that was kind of cool. So that's pretty awesome. But Deuce Staley is the Lions running back coach. He's got a guy in DeAndre Swift to work with, also potentially Kerryon Johnson. There could be some moving pieces around the running back group. We're probably going to add some new guys. So here's what I took away from it. First off, he said he felt Dan Campbell's energy. Who didn't? Dan Campbell's energy was phenomenal. Just from the opening jump. First impressions are important, right? The first impression, opening jump, the opening tip, the first impression for Dan Campbell was phenomenal. And apparently he had that on his staff as well. Didn't take a promotion or, they took the same job just to come in Detroit instead. Like, a lot of guys wanted to work in Detroit. And I guess Dan Campbell really did have a great effect on them. He said Aaron Glenn said they were building something special because he also talked to Aaron Glenn. And he said it felt right. He said, I've talked to other teams in the past because we know he has. A lot of people have looked at Deuce Staley because, he's a former player that a lot of people look at to add to their staff. And apparently when Dan Campbell called him, then Aaron Glenn followed up, who was our defense coordinator. We'll talk about him in a second. He said it felt right. So I'm glad he's here. I'll tell you that. I am very glad he's here. At the time, Swift doesn't know this, but he did go back and watch him in high school. I guess he worked with somebody that knew his dad, and he said this guy was pretty amazing in high school, so he went to go check him out, and he said, yeah, the guy was awesome. He said DeAndre Swift was awesome. So his first impressions actually go back to high school, and then he kind of, paid a little bit of attention to him when he was in college, and then with the Detroit Lions, he calls the guy special. He also says, that he believes DeAndre Swift can be a 3-down running back. He says this: the most important role for a running back is to protect the passer. If you can't block, you can't play for me. Now, when he said that, I initially just thought of Kerryon Johnson. I'm like, okay, that's what Kerryon does best, is he pass blocks. So, that might be a very big in for Kerryon Johnson on this roster. I'm sure Jared Goff is sitting there going, oh, yeah. oh, yeah, I like this guy, Deuce Staley. That's what I like to hear. But he did say that DeAndre Swift has special traits, kind of the same as when, 20 years ago when the roles were reversed. The coaching is kind of the same because it is all about relationship. It's man-to-man. It's respect for the coach. It's the coach having respect for the player. And at the end of the day, man, it's just all about relationships. And he says this: yeah, Swift can be a 3-down running back in the NFL. To that point, we saw last season Swift's ability to kind of play in really any situation and thrive in any situation. He's just that talented. That's why so many people thought he was the best running back in the draft class when he came out. And I expect this season maybe to find more consistency in terms of his role. Look, last season the Lions were trying not to get him hurt. The coaching staff wanted to kind of ease him into it, which I get, I respect it. Maybe they eased him into it too slowly. I remember it was about the 5th game, and I made a video. I was like, man, he's got to get more touches, and he will get more touches because he's just so dynamic with the football. And they ended up doing that. It was probably a little bit too slow in my opinion, but I do understand, and I agree with the part of, not giving him every single touch, because that's just not how he's built, and you don't want to get your running back hurt because they take a lot. They take a lot of damage. They take a lot of hits. So you don't want to get him hurt. You want to kind of, have a balance between him and another running back, or even another running back after that. But I do expect him to be more consistently involved, where it's not like, okay, hey, 4 carries this game, 2 carries, then 12 carries. It's not going to be something like that. I expect to be consistent, and not even carries, because Deuce Staley tells us it's not about the carries, it's more about touches. So I'd say more consistent touches. It's not a game where he's not really involved to next year he is involved. We saw last season how great he can be. I think we'll just see more consistently he'll be involved constantly. So that's what I got from Deuce Staley. Those are the major takeaways from him. So let's move on to the offensive coordinator then. Anthony Lynn is joining from the Chargers, where he was the head coach. And Dave Burkett straight up asked him, did you deserve to be fired? I was like, oh snap, Dave, you really went in. Dave ain't afraid to go in. I'll give him that, man. This dude will ask any question. Like, even if they're not going to answer it, he'll ask it. And when he asked it, I was like, oh snap. Just ask him that. Focused on winning. So if that means throwing it 50 times, that means rushing it 50 times. It's all about winning. They don't really care how it comes. He said, yeah, I know, people look at me as this ground and pound type of guy, which is interesting because, yeah, I know people look at that. But one thing I've noticed, actually, if you look at his stats when he was with the Chargers as their head coach, they weren't like top half in the league in rushing many of those years. It was actually, they were very balanced. They were a very balanced attack. So it wasn't like they were just this huge ground and pound team in his most recent years with the Chargers. He said, even though he was that coach, he was calling like 1/3 of the plays. He had other guys doing it, but he said even before he became the offensive coordinator, he was calling plays. So it's something that, he has experience with for this next opportunity to be one again. I saw from Anthony Lynn with the Chargers that he's not the type of coach, that's going to go out there and just run the ball all the time. That's just because of who he is. If that's what the game calls for, then that's what he'll do. If that's what the game plan is. And it actually takes us all the way back to what Dan Campbell said when he first came here, because he came here with the same approach. Said, hey, whatever the matchup is, we're just going to go based off of that. Now, speaking of our situation, he didn't really go into who the quarterback could be. He said, yeah, if it's a rookie, it's one of the things where you just got to take things off of their plate. You got to try to take as much off their plate as you can, try to kind of simplify it for them, almost kind of make it seem like almost the college field, just a way on the call plays, things like that. We know he's working with Justin Herbert. He didn't say, who the quarterback would be because, they don't know. And of course, Jared Goff isn't even there yet. But he said it could be Jared Goff. He's talented. He was the first pick in the draft for a reason. Pretty much just summed up, trying to keep the rookie as comfortable as possible. And, speaking on that, because he was asked about, okay, would you start a rookie quarterback, or you want to get the vet? He said, look, I basically just said I want to start a vet. I like having a quarterback be able to sit. He brought up the Patrick Mahomes situation. He's had that situation where, that's kind of what Herbert was going to be, but then Tyrod Taylor got hurt and Herbert had to be the guy. But that's kind of the thing, is where he likes having the vet start. So if we did get a rookie quarterback and Goff was gone and the Lions tried to pull off that crazy scenario, then, he wants to start the vet first, basically what he told us. But he said, if in camp, if that rookie quarterback is the better quarterback, you got to start the rookie because you'll have, basically an outright outrage in the locker room. You can't have that. But he said, yeah, if I could, if I was able to, I'd like to start the vet first, because he said it's a lot faster in the NFL. And he said with social media, players can lose confidence, and once they lose confidence, they may never get it back. So he's the type of coach that likes to have a quarterback sit. If Goff is here, that won't be the case, because Goff will be the starter. But if Goff isn't here and the Lions do try to pull off a crazy scenario of trading him, which I don't think is going to happen, by the way, if they did, then you could see a signed vet, and then you can see a situation where that vet starts. Now, if you flip that thought a little bit, you could almost look at it as, okay, what if Jared Goff was the vet and you drafted a player to sit behind him? Now, that's an interesting scenario. Whether that's this year or next year, we have all these draft picks. That could also be a situation that the Lions look is for, drafting a quarterback, having behind Goff, having a guy be competition, and if Goff takes the role, he takes the role. If he doesn't, then obviously, the rookie can take over that role. I don't expect it to be a first-round pick. I could see the Lions draft a quarterback this year. Actually, my latest mock off season, yes, we did trade back, but I actually got Kellen Mond, and I could see something like that, depending on how many picks Lions are able to come up with. If they only have 6, then maybe not, because they may just focus more on initial needs right now. But if you're in a situation where a quarterback falls later in the draft, we've talked about this before. We've talked about the quarterback situation, but I don't think that situation is going to happen anyways. I think Goff is going to start next season. So one of the easiest things you can do for quarterbacks to take a lot off their plate is, have a good rushing attack. You run the ball well, it takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback. We saw that with Goff with the Rams, how big of a difference it was when they could run versus when they couldn't run the football in LA. So that's obviously a big factor. And he said also protecting the quarterback. I mean, look, it's going to be kind of the same approach Dan Campbell takes, which should be fun to watch during the season if it plays out like that, because you're going to see games where they pass a ton and they just exploit a bad secondary, and you'll see games where they maybe go against a team that really can't stop the run and they just run the ball over and over and over, ground and pound. And at times last year we didn't see that, and it was kind of like, oh man, it just felt like we had the same similar game plan every week. And I think you contribute that to whoever you want to, but in general that was the case. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But if you do adjust it based on who you play offensively, because I felt like we did defensively but not as much offensively, it was strange. But if you do offensively, it should be fun, because it could make for some very, very interesting, game plans. That is for sure. It's similar to what Dan Campbell said when Dan Campbell said, hey, look, if we got to throw 50 times, we're going to do this 20 times, whatever it takes to win. We're going to do it. We're going to do whatever it takes to win, whatever it looks like. Now, he did say the offensive line he believes is the deepest position on the roster. And I agree with him on that. When you think about guys under contract, offensive line probably is the deepest position. I mean, think about it. Our full starting 5 could be basically intact. You still have Joe Dahl on the roster. You got Logan Stenberg who potentially take that role if you can take it from Joe Dahl. But we got bench guys. Like, we have our offensive line pretty much intact. I mean, you can always upgrade it, but I would agree with him in terms of right now where it's currently sitting. It probably is the deepest position on the team. He was pleased with how he's seen the offensive line, guys like Jonah Jackson so far. So, that's good. I guess that's always a good thing. Also touched on DeAndre Swift saying that he can be a 3-down back, but then he did sneak in this little note right afterwards that, oh yeah, I caught on to it. He said, we'll find someone to go with him. As you should. You got to have someone to go with him. You can't, give him all the touches. Is that Swift is such a great receiving threat that I could see him be utilized so much more this season in the passing attack, out of the backfield, lining up as a receiver. I could see that a lot this year. I would not be shocked if we saw that a lot this season. It is about touches, but Aaron Glenn kind of slid in there. Yeah, we got to get someone to go with him. Who is that going to be? I'm not sure. Look, Deuce Staley, he wants guys to protect the quarterback. Kerryon Johnson does that very well. I mean, and then Adrian Peterson's, his contract is up. He's still pushing to go work with Tom Brady. He wants to go play with Tom. So we'll see. I expect him to bring a running back. I don't know when, but at some point we'll see. Free agency draft, I'm not sure. But he did leave it with this. The reason I'm here is because of Dan Campbell. Straight up. The reason I'm here is because of Dan Campbell. That's a good thing. Literally every coach saying that, unless Dan Campbell paid him to say that, does that not make you feel good about the staff? I mean, we knew that. People were turning down other job offers. People were not taking promotions just to work in Detroit. And when does that ever happen? Especially when you just went 4, 5, and 11, you don't have a quarterback, or you didn't at the time. And they're like, hey, yeah, I came here to work with Dan Campbell. I want to work with this guy. He's just a great guy. Man, I almost want to work for Dan Campbell. Dan, wait, where do I sign up? Where's the application?
A help wanted sign in the window.
I'm just saying. All right, but he loves the staff that the Lions are putting together. And let's finish it off with Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator. Let's hop over to the defense side. Some of the major takeaways I got from Aaron Glenn. Everybody brought in are good coaches. They brought in a lot of good coaches, high character guys, and he said they're dang good coaches. He said they're high character guys, but they're dang good coaches. He didn't say dang, but I said dang because it's a family-friendly YouTube channel.
Why couldn't the 11-year-old get into the pirate movie? Why? It was rated R.
Kind of saying the exact same thing that Dan Campbell brought up is that last season, players were confused. Players were unconfident at times. They were playing slow. They weren't playing fast. They weren't just playing, And that was the thing that we discussed. We did a long video on that, but I think it's inconfident. Maybe inconfident. I'm not sure. But lacking confidence, playing slow. It's something that even Patricia brought up during the last season. So it's legit. And then we heard Dan Campbell bring it up, and then Aaron Glenn comes back and says the exact same thing. So he said, he wants to make it simple in terms of, okay, hey, yeah, this is going to be a lot easier, not thinking too much, because when you're thinking too much, you play slow, which is obviously facts. But he said it's not going to be simple where, other teams can just kind of go off on us. We know the Lions had the worst defense we've ever seen in our franchise history last season. So hopefully that improves, and hopefully Aaron Glenn can get us to that point. He said he looks for 4 things in his players, basically. He wants tough, smart, confident, and athletic. All right, he wants guys that are tough. Got to have that in the NFL. He wants guys that are smart. Of course, got to have that in the NFL. He wants guys that are confident, which is something that they said we lacked last season, and athletes. He wants athletes, man. Who doesn't want athletes? Glenn said another thing that you could do is be straightforward with your players. It's something, that he said Sean Payton was. He was very black and white. Like, this is where we are. This is how you do it. That way people aren't, kind of confused on what's being asked of them. Confusion is an issue, but it's when things get overcomplicated. When things get overcomplicated, you're thinking too much, you're slow. That makes you incompetent because you're like, oh gosh, you're like, I'm going to make a mistake. That's a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues there. And I thought one thing that he said was very, very interesting. I hate saying interesting so much. You know what? Stay right here with me. Hold up. No, no cuts. Not a single one. Not a single cut. Wait right there. All right. Hold up 1 second. Okay. Interesting. Synonym. All right. All right. One thing that I thought was very compelling. Never thought to say that. One thing I thought was very compelling is that Aaron Glenn said to a guy like Jeff Okudah, and, he said this about, hey, look, we got Amani, Jeff Okudah, Tracy Walker, Will Harris, but to a guy like Jeff Okudah, don't try to live up to the 3rd pick in the draft. Don't try to be the 3rd pick in the draft. Don't even think about that. Let your best be good enough for the Detroit Lions. Let your best, what you do best, be good enough for the Lions. Play your best, and that will be good enough for the Lions. Because I think that's a very good way to say it, which it sounds bad, but if you think about it, it sounds like a really good way to say it. Okay, let your best, what you do at your best, be good enough. All right, because then you're just going to be putting yourself down too much. You got to be confident in yourself as well. Confidence is an inside thing, and it appears to have a very big effect on that. So that's why I think the coaching staff is so important. And again, that goes back to having forming players, which is very important as well. Now, with Amani, Jeff Okudah, Tracy Walker, Will Harris, he said a great thing about this young secondary. It reminds me of when I was in New Orleans. Oh snap! Y'all know what I'm getting at here. Von Bell, Marshawn Lattimore, right? Some of those names. And we know what the Saints secondary looked like this past year. He was part of developing a lot of those young guys, UDFAs, all that. He said a great thing that's part of that is when he came into Saints, he got to help develop and mold those young players to what they are now. He has that opportunity with Okudah going to second year, with Amani going into his 3rd year, right? Tracy Walker going into, I think, his 3rd year, Will Harris to his 2nd year. I mean, these are very young players, and you have an opportunity to mold them, and that's not even including guys that we could potentially add, and you can still help Justin Coleman because he needs it, man, if he's here. So that's true. I mean, you got a young secondary, you have an opportunity, to kind of put your stamp on all of these young players and help develop them and get them to where they are. And that brings us to Aubrey Pleasant. Aubrey Pleasant, who was hired, part of Aaron Glenn's staff, and he said, one thing I learned from Bill Parcells, because Bill Parcells and Sean Payton were big influences really in his coaching career. He said, one thing I learned from Bill Parcells is get guys to work around you that were within your tribe. One thing about Aubrey Pleasant being a secondary coach is that's in a similar tribe, right? He knows about the secondary, knows about the back end, which was Aaron Glenn's specialty. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest focuses defensively is to see how well that develops. And you would think that'd be the spot that really will develop is because you talk about it, all right, we have all these young guys, right? That's the spot that needs to be developed. We have pieces there. We have assets that we put towards fixing that. Now they just need to get coaching, right? They need the right coaching. They need to put the right disposition. They need the confidence back. And I think they realize that. Now you move down to the linebacker position, and he said, look, there's not a certain type of guy I really want. I mean, there might be, but he didn't say it. He said, I want fast guys. I love fast guys, but I like big guys too. But I like big guys that are fast. But who doesn't, right? He wants guys that can cover, won't get tackled. I mean, you want these things. So it is all a lot about development. That's why I think coaching is so overlooked all the time, but it shouldn't be because it is such an important factor in sports. At any level, coaching is extremely important. And I think people, kind of forget that at times. But that could be make or break for a certain player, for a lot of different players. Now, he does bring up the fact that he has, both experience in a 4-3 with the Saints and in the 3-4 before the Saints. So he said, look, I can play, both schemes. I'm well diverse in both. And he basically said, I think he basically said as, we will fit the scheme to the talent that we have. So that's something that Brad Holmes will put together. They kind of all stated that, okay, that's not our decision. This is not our decision. That player's not our decision. But he did say everybody gets a voice. It might have been Anthony Lynn who said that everybody does get a voice. But one thing I noticed about Aaron Glenn is that dude had a lot of confidence. Aaron Glenn was like the type of dude that's gonna like read you a book. You know, he's like a narrator. You know, I'm serious.
Happy, a kiss on his.
Hey, Dave Fipp scared me a little bit with his laugh, but Aaron Glenn, I was chilling. He did say that he hopes Romeo Court is back because he calls him a pressure player. And he says you always have to have pressure players in the NFL. He called Trey Flowers a unique player, basically, because Trey Flowers is the type of guy that you can put on the outside, put on the inside. You know, you can attack different ways. But he called Romeo Court a pressure player. I hope Romeo's back too. Come on, stay here with your brother, Romeo. Take a little bit less money. Come on, Romeo. But yeah, I mean, that's really the main takeaways that I have from this. I try to keep it kind of short and sweet, but I would say the main takeaways from all of it is that they're excited to be here. They came here because of Dan Campbell, right? A lot of these guys are super pumped to work with Dan Campbell. And, you know, look, it seems like, man, I don't know. It just seems like there's really good, this is a really good connection here. You know, it just seems like there's a really good, strong feel throughout the sense of it is that everybody is getting along, at least as of now. I mean, look, Aaron Glenn said it best. Like, hey, we're both former players. We're competitors, so we'll get at each other, you know, here and there. But, you know, like, there's great relationships. And I think that's huge. And it's something that the Lions really wanted to have. And it's something that they felt Dan Campbell could do. We were also told that when Dan Campbell was hired, he was going to put together an incredible staff. And I got to say, they were right. It looks like they were right so far. Now, results. You got to wait for results. We got to see what they can do. But Dan Campbell told us, I want you to wait. I don't want you to say, hey, you done a great job before I do a great job. You know, that's basically what he told us. Like, let us prove it first. We got to prove ourselves first. So, I don't know about you, but hey, if this was Kool-Aid, you can see I drank it. Well, actually, there's a little bit in there, but it's actually milk. Milk. Skim milk. I'm going to end it here. Let me know your thoughts, guys, below. What do you guys take away from this? What do you guys take away from this? What is your hypeness level right now? Mine is probably a solid 10 out of 7. Let me know your thoughts, guys, below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.